How many do you need? Like,
Patience. I will now call to order the Select Board meeting for the Town of Plainville on October 21st, 2024 at 6:37 PM. Would you all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of fallen members of our first responder and military communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We will begin by a quick review of the agenda and approve minutes of previous meetings, and as well as any requested public comment on non-agenda items. I also want to remind everyone that, as posted on the notice on the door of this meeting room, that the Select Board meeting is recorded by North TV, and apologize in advance for the technical difficulties we're having with our projector this evening. Let's see. We'll run through the agenda quickly. For the consent agenda, we've got minutes to approve of our September 23rd regular meeting, as well as October 7th regular meeting, which was also our special town meeting. Public comment on agenda items as needed. We've got three announcements, one about a donation, one about a grant, and one about license renewals. Under old business, we have got an update on our special town meeting, which was October 7th, as well as an update on the South Street TIPS project. And we are going to postpone agenda item 4.3, which was ARPA funds reallocation. We're waiting on a little more information, and we'll put that on our next agenda for a couple weeks from now.
Yes.
5.1, we've got a public hearing and joint meeting with our Board of Assessors. 5.2, adopt the residential and commercial taxation shift. 5.3, approval of sewer debt exclusion. Under new business, we've got, let's see, an introduction for our police department's new mental health clinician. We've got a Verizon Fios update, which was something that was requested of me at our special town meeting, so we put that on the agenda. We've got a hawker peddler license to review. We have a Class 2 license application for Crossroads Auto, and we've got to appoint election officials to be sworn in for the November 5th state election. Public comment will be had on agenda items throughout. With that, can I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move that the Select Board vote to accept the consent agenda as presented and approve the minutes of the September 23rd, 2024 regular meeting and the October 7th, 2024 regular meeting as presented.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. With that, announcements, Mr. Noble.
Certainly. Let me go through the easy ones first. A big win for King Philip High School. They achieved gold status on the College Board's AP School Honor Roll, recognizing its success in preparing students for college through advanced placement program. This distinction reflects KP's commitment to fostering a college-going culture, with 77% of students taking at least one AP exam. 60% scoring a 3 or higher, 20% participating in AP classes starting in the 9th or 10th grade, and only 6% of eligible schools received the gold status this year. So our congratulations to not only Superintendent Goulet and Principal Bottomley, but also, of course, to the students and the teacher staff. So really good announcement there.
Awesome.
The police department announced that they received a cash donation of $100 from Plainville resident William Schoolcraft, and so the board does need to vote to accept that.
I move that the select board vote to accept the donation from resident William Schoolcraft to the police department in the amount of $100.
Second that?
With thanks.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I jumped in too
Have
quickly.
a motion and a
Too slow.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Thank you very much, William.
Thank you. We have an announcement that the police department has successfully been awarded a $19,997.92 in a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration grant for a municipal road safety program. And you'll be seeing some speed signs popping up measuring your speed. I know that you all love that. So that will be coming as a result of a grant from the federal government. And thank you to Jim Floyd, Chief Floyd, for the work he did getting that donation. So it's a pretty good donation.
Excellent. Motion for that, to accept that?
You don't have to.
Oh, we don't have to? Okay.
So we have 3 additional announcements that were submitted. I want to remind people that Select Board office hours are October 28th from 6 to 7:30 in the Historical Commission meeting room upstairs. We want to commend the fire department for a very successful open house with our thanks to the Plainville Fire Department as well as the Metacomet Emergency Communication Center and the Regional Outdoor Rescue Group. So I'm particularly pleased, that's a county rescue. They did an excellent job with the open house, and it was extremely well attended. The Plainville, it's also another announcement from the Council on Aging, the Plainville Fire Senior Safe Program, working with the Red Cross and our Council on Aging for Sound the Alarm program is now available to all of our seniors, and for details, see the Council on Aging. Another good win for the town. Thank you. That's all I have for announcements.
I had a couple more announcements. One was that on Friday morning last week, I attended the Tri-County groundbreaking, which was pretty great to see. Jack, whose last name escapes me, but is a young gentleman who did an internship from Tri-County, helped us do some work on the bathhouse, the facility over at Telford Park by the pool. Gave some remarks there. He did a great job. Just want to recognize him. That was a great morning. We had it looked like it was going to be freezing cold, and it was actually pretty darn nice. And everybody came out. Some great presentations, great speeches, and it was cool to see that project is kicked off. Also wanted to announce that the Plainville Bonfire is back. I just saw an announcement come out over the weekend that November 30th, as a part of the Winter Festival, I guess we're calling it. So that's something to be excited about coming up. And I just want to thank John Tyner, Parks Department, the Parks Commissioners, the Fire Department, Police Department, and Maggie and the Spirit of Plainville
We're just helping.
for making it happen. But that is a big-time piece of Plainville's history to have come back. So couldn't be more excited for that. And then one other last bit of announcement was that this morning, Jeff Kinney was on the Today Show and talking about his new book, which just came out. And as a part of that discussion with Al Roker and the rest of the gang, Dylan and all that, he talked about the Plainville Square project, showed all the pictures, the unlikely strummers, and all the pictures of the demo day that we had up there. And unfortunately, Maggie did not make the cut as the picture zoomed, but Jeff and I were on TV this morning. You saw her arm?
I saw her arm.
So all three of us. Maggie's arm was on TV too. That was pretty cool. So, all right, that's it for announcements. Old business, 4.1 special town meeting update, Mr. Noble.
Obviously, a very successful special town meeting, and all of the 5 articles were accepted, including the bonding of the water treatment plant that we're proposing to build on George Street. I want to thank the town for their patience. It was a record attendance for a special town meeting, and I really do appreciate the work from the select board in preparing for that meeting and preparing the presentations. And I couldn't ask for more support from the board and from the finance committee, and truthfully from our electorate. They listened, they heard, they voted, and it was an overwhelming show of support for the plan that we have going forward. So I'm particularly grateful, and we will hope to work to justify the wisdom of that vote.
Absolutely, yeah, great meeting. Thanks, everybody, for your preparation in making it happen, and thanks everyone who came out to participate. It was a great night. Any other thoughts?
Oh, I'm very pleased by the turnout, very pleased by the questions in the months leading up to the meeting, because I think that helped us have a presentation that answered other people's questions when they were there.
I would agree. All right. With that, are we ready to move to 4.2? Do we have everyone we need here?
Yes, we, 4.2 we do, yeah, which is, wait a
Chris?
minute, I'm sorry, no, let's go right to the,
Chris, are you ready for tips or no?
no, I don't see Chris Brainerd.
No?
So let's use.
We'll come back to 4.2. We'll move to 5.1, public hearing and joint meeting with the Board of Assessors, if you'd like to come on up.
Are you able to project now, Brian?
So 4.3, I'd announced up front, we're going to postpone that. 3. What did I miss?
3.3?
Oh, 3.3.
An announcement that license renewals are in the mail.
Thank you very much. Mr. Noble?
Our license renewals went out in the mail on Saturday, excuse me, on Wednesday, I don't know what I'm thinking. So all of the liquor license, common vic, class 1, 2, and 3 car dealers, antique shop, all of those permits are in the mail. And of course, they all have to be signed and returned, signed in the month of November, and returned immediately to the select board's office for processing. It is my goal that we shall not have to do a midnight meeting approving permits at the end of the year. We have put in the notice that you put it in on time, or you won't have your license in time for January 1st. So hate to threaten people, but we gotta give them a deadline so that they get it done in a reasonable period of time.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brenda. All right. Welcome.
Thank you.
Do you want to call your meeting to order?
You're already in order.
You're already in order?
Yep.
You're in order. All right.
We need a motion to open the public hearing.
Excellent.
You need to open the joint meeting.
All right. Let's.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the select board vote to open the public hearing and joint meeting of the Board of Assessors at 6:48 PM.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Jeff.
Good evening, thank you for having us here.
Absolutely.
Start off on page 1. For the taxation and classification of property according to use. Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 56, mandates that the Select Board determine by policy the distribution of property tax across each class of property, residential, commercial, industrial, personal property, and open space. This year's valuation draws from property sales during 2023 and any improvements. The town had over $30 million of new growth through the addition of new construction and improvements to existing properties. This growth raised the tax levy limit by over $490,000. The anticipated maximum tax levy is $32,408,198 for FY25, which is about a 4% increase from the preceding year. And last year, the max levy increased by about 10%. Next page is just a really quick look at the tax rate history, showing you'll see that the tax rate has, for the residential, has decreased over the last 10 years. And the shift has increased each year. We're going to get into that a little bit more in the next few slides. It's some changes there. But I always like to present a quick little history on the tax history and what's happened over the last 10.
Excuse me, Mr. Noble, have you tried since they reset this?
He's rebooting the computer right now just to see if there's any way we can get this projector working. Sorry for those of you at home that can't see anything.
Right.
So on the next page, this is the quick little pie chart there. Basically, the next slide, it's basically showing the percentage of each class for the total value of the town. You can see on the chart that commercial, industrial, and personal property combined are now at 30% for the total value for FY '25. And as of FY '24, Plainville was at 32%. So you'll see in the next few slides, we'll get into a little bit, but this little bit of a decrease has had some impact on where the shift is going. It's just a 2% decrease, but it did have a little bit of impact. So the next page shows the increase in the percentage of the average single-family value and the average commercial value. The average single-family increased by about 10%, and the average commercial value increased by about 1%. We also reviewed the median increase for industrial, and this saw an increase of about 13%. I also included at the bottom, this is a comparison of the surrounding towns to show how we compare in tax rate and shift. You can see that somewhat similar to most of the surrounding towns. We have the lowest average single-family tax bill compared to those towns as well. Is there any questions on this page? Anybody?
Go ahead.
I would just, going back to the increased value in the average single family versus the average commercial, that reflects really real estate market across the state and probably across the country. That,
Yes.
That, homes have risen considerably in price. Commercial space, not quite as much.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Very consistent.
I think we should be grateful our commercial went up at all.
Yep,
Compared to some
absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
I'm just curious why it was the median for industrial but average.
So-
Yeah.
Yep, and I have some paperwork on the side too. The reason why we looked at the median on it is, so if you just took the straight average on industrial, for the overall, it didn't move that much, but there was when you look at the median, so sometimes I'll look at both. And the median did increase quite a bit for the industrial class alone. So we decided we needed to take a look at that, especially just to kind of draw that in there and have that so that people can also see the impact that that's going to have as we're starting to set the tax rate. I looked at, so just to give you another example, I looked at what the median was for commercial as well, and it actually matched up with how commercial was increasing on the average.
Okay.
So they were both like 2%.
Okay.
The same with the residential as well.
Gotcha.
So they matched
They
up
lined up.
evenly. But then when I did the industrial, it didn't quite, and it was actually showing that the median was actually much higher. So it was a lot of some of the biggest changes. We had a lot of sales of the industrial condos that we have in town, where there's bays. A bunch of those sold, and they sold for a lot more. So we had that was a big.
Okay, so while the average wasn't such a big increase, okay. got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, so
Okay.
just kind of trying to detail that out a little bit more, because when we
Okay.
do make that shift, it is going to have some impact on that industrial versus
Okay,
where the commercial didn't move as much.
okay. All right, thanks.
It would not hurt my feelings to see both median and average, future presentations
Sure.
at all three groups. Even though in some cases, as you indicate, they'll flow together. But
Yep.
there will be times that they'll deviate. It's important to call those out.
Yep, absolutely, you can do that. So the next sheet is just a quick look at the comparison to other towns that have a similar CIP percentage and total value. You can see on the chart that the commercial industrial tax rates that our commercial industrial tax rate sits about the middle compared to these towns. And our shift is just above the lowest in Bellingham. The median shift, this is just another thing to look at too, the median shift used by towns with a split tax rate is 1.69. So we're well below that. There's 111 towns using a split tax rate out of the 351, and out of those 111, we're at about 88. So we're definitely on the lower side as far as the shift. But some of them have been using it for quite a bit and have also a lot more volume, amounts that they have, so. The next page, this is the options. So you'll see in the first line there, that's what the current tax rate is. So the current residential is $12 and $18.79 for commercial. So when we're looking at option one, this is using the same exact shift. And if we use the same exact shift, the tax rate for residential would drop to $11.82 and the commercial to $18.20, which would result in an increase to the average single family by a little over 8%. And the average, it would be for the average commercial would decrease by about almost 2%. And then the industrial would increase by about 9.5%. So in option two, we looked at the slight increase to the shift to 1.367, and that would result in a tax rate of $11.56 for the residential and $18.79 for commercial. So the interesting thing to look at there, so you're going to see there will be an increase to the single family, the average single family tax rate would be about a little over 6%. The commercial would be a little over 1%. And then for the median industrial, it's looking at about a 13% increase. So at that 13%, the one thing to point out there is that the average percentage increase for commercial and industrial combined will come out to be about actually 7% if you put them together, if you merge those two together. So then option three would be a shift a little bit higher at $11.49 residential tax rate and commercial tax rate at $18.96, which would then result in average single family going up by a little over 5%, commercial a little over 2%, and industrial a little over 14%. And then the last column, and this is just to really draw the fact of the benefit of the split tax rate, is if we went back to a single tax rate, it would be $13.74, which would result in an increase for the average single family by 26%, a decrease of commercial by 26%, and a decrease for industrial. And if you compare where that, if you look at the average single family tax, if it was at a single tax rate, it would come in about a little over $8,000. And if you compare it to option two, it's $6,797. So by having that split tax rate, you're seeing a savings of almost about $1,300 to the average single family. Any questions on that or anything further?
Go ahead.
Can you tell me what is classified as industrial?
Well, the two of the biggest ones, so some of it's the warehousing, so the cubes
Okay.
is under industrial, Thermo Fisher's under industrial, those are probably the two biggest ones, and then anything else, like I said, we have those industrial condos and stuff like that, so
Right,
it's.
so those are just owned by smaller businesses or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah, I guess that's just my concern right off the bat, is the impact that could have on small business owners, you know?
Yeah, and that's why we wanted to, as we talked with the board and we discussed and we went over everything, we were looking at all the different angles of that and saying, so on one side, not looking at, having commercial decreasing as much, but also not going up too much because it's going to also impact that industrial. So that's where the balance between the two, as far as what the recommendation from the board was kind of based on that. Yep. So getting to the next page, so given the proposed tax adjustments, the average single-family tax invoice is projected to increase by about $399 or 6.23%. The residential tax rate is expected to decline by 3.8%, transitioning from $12 to an approximate rate of $11.56. Next page is the decisions. The next few pages are the decisions in front of us. Residential factor, it's a policy vote is needed to determine the amount of tax levy that all classes will bear, and a minimum residential factor may be adopted as well. And next page, the residential exemption, as a policy decision is needed concerning the allowance of up to a 20% residential exemption. Adopting a residential exemption increases the residential tax rate. Plainville has not adopted this previously. This option is typically adopted in rental and summer homes. And then the next page is small commercial exemption. Policy decision is needed regarding the small commercial exemption. Small commercial exemption, small commercial business exemption is an option that can reduce the commercial evaluation by up to 10%. Adopting a small commercial exemption increases the commercial and industrial tax. And as noted, Plainville has not adopted this previously. And lastly, the recommendations, the Board of Assessors recommends adoption of option 2 for FY25, property tax rate distribution. The Board of Assessors recommends the town of Plainville vote to adopt a minimum residential factor of 0.8413 and to not adopt a residential exemption and to not adopt a small commercial exemption.
So it's option, basically it's option 2 and then a no on 2 and 3. Is that right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Which we wouldn't need to move.
Because we've already, right, because we've already, right. Maggie, go ahead.
So we have here I'm looking at that page with the,
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
so the median industrial tax change would be 13% roughly. Do we know what the average industrial tax change would be?
So if when I checked on it, it was, I believe it is fairly close to it's fairly close to what the average single family, it's gonna drop in
Okay.
right around there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay,
So it's still up. It's still up from, but not as, I think it was closer to it's closer to probably 4 or 5%. And that's why I said it, that's why we looked at the median again, because there's a whole bunch of them. I have a whole list where it shows it. And for some reason, like I said, it was just, whatever reason, it didn't quite lay out that way as far as
Yeah.
the average overall.
okay. All right.
Ready for questions?
Yeah, I just, Mike, I'm just wondering if I should even open my mouth. Go ahead. I'll wait.
I'll let you wonder for a minute.
I'll wait.
Thank you for your hard work putting this together.
Yeah, let's start there. Thank you.
Some people aren't aware, but there's an incredibly dense table of CIP values and ratios and residential factors, and that they sort through to look at all these choices, and to come up, to narrow it down to this is a tremendous amount of effort, so thank you for that. It's hard, it's easy if, it's easy for everybody if our commercial industrial grows a ton, because that makes it easy on our residents. It's easy, relatively easy, if the valuations grow in step with each other. If everybody's value goes up 10%, everything stays even. The challenge is in a year like this, where the home values went up 10%, commercial industrial only went up 1%, the whole pie can only grow 2.5%, but now you've changed the apportionment of that pie because one segment, residential, has grown so fast, and one segment hasn't. So I think option 2 reflects care to not put too much more burden on the industrial commercial. They are the goose that's giving us a golden egg every year, saving us over $1,000 per house, as we point out with the tax rate. At the same time, I'm sure people will be happy to see the residential tax rate drop so significantly, but they'll be puzzled why their average tax bill might be going up 5 or 6%. given the limitations of Proposition 2.5, but it really reflects the dynamics of that market we don't have any control over. It seems to me option 2 is not a bad middle ground to respect both that residential tax bill and not push the tax rate too much harder as we push that shift.
I was going to say, and we are moving that shift up a little bit more, and we are getting closer to where our max shift is actually at 1.5. So even though some of these other towns are using much higher and they have to go through these other steps to get to that, we're getting closer to our maximum at the 1.5.
Not that it mattered for tonight, but it was a question I had for you that I think I'm going to ask you tomorrow.
Okay.
How did they do that?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea, but I noticed that some are over 1.5.
There are some, we've talked, just to look at it, and there are some procedural things to go through to get to that.
I don't
They
think-
also have, we're talking about, see, because our percentage-wise is kind of high, but some of these other towns that are using it have, numbers-wise, large amounts to draw from. And I think that's how they're able to do it.
Well, anyway, I think this was a reasonable compromise. I think certainly leaving it the same would be unacceptable, and we shouldn't consider option 3 is a little nicer to the homeowners, but I don't want to be pushing that shift up, getting too close to that limit if we can help it.
And option 2, just to be clear, it basically keeps our residential mill rate identical to last year, right? 879, is that right?
Yeah, the commercial rate, yep, stay at 1879, yep.
Stays the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Just, I think option 2 probably makes the most sense. It's really tricky because it's competing priorities, right? Like, we want people to be able to live and afford to live in Plainville, but at the same time, we want to be business friendly. We want businesses to feel like this is a good place to do business, so it's competing. I think that's probably the best compromise.
Yeah, and we have, and that was back to the tax history page too, and you can see how we have had quite a bit of shifting through the last few years too. Like, good space has been created there, so.
And I think it's worth noting, we will end up with, I think, the lowest average home tax bill once the only other community that's down near us does their update.
Yep.
So I feel good about that.
Any other questions? Want to come right up to the podium? Can you come up to the podium just so we can hear you on TV? Thank you very much.
Christopher, and if I came in late, so forgive me, 39 High Street. If I'm asking a question that's already been answered, our commercial industrial rate is raised every single year, and thankfully our residential rate has not. But at what point and how competitive are we with the CIP rate with our neighbors?
You want to run through that slide?
Yep. So. Well, okay, so you. Okay. This is the slide that we have there with the, compared to the other ones that have a similar CIP to us. But as to our neighbors, I actually have,
Like North Attleboro, Foxborough, Rentham, even Cumberland, I guess.
Yeah, we're about even with Mansfield, we're less than Rentham, and we're just higher than Foxborough and Norfolk.
yeah, and so, right, so our comparison of shift is over here, so we're just a little bit below where they are. You go to the,
Next page. Okay.
so that will show you where the shift is, but also, and I do have this, the information on their percentage of CIP,
Yeah.
all the surrounding ones aren't nearly near ours. Most of them are at like 7, so if you go to this page where I was showing now the percentage, these are the towns that's gonna compare with us, because we're at 32%, now we're at 30. These are the ones higher, so all these other towns that are near us, they're more like at 17%.
Okay,
They
so
have a lower amount.
let's take a look at a spreadsheet, situation, right? We're in the top 0.005% of the towns in Massachusetts. There's 351, of which we're in the top 9 or 10. So that shift will look upon very favorably of us versus them.
Yep, and
So-
so we've kept that in mind, and so we were a little bit higher when we were at the 32%. Now we've dipped down a little bit because it's gone from 32
Yeah.
back down to 30, so we dropped a
Yeah.
little bit. So if you look at last year's, yes, we were in that 14, and so now we've dropped a little bit. So that was definitely something else that we looked at as well.
Okay, so you've factored in the market and all the different things. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
You good?
Yeah, this seems like,
Okay. I move that the select board vote to approve and adopt a residential factor of 0.8413 as recommended by the Board of Assessors for FY '25.
I'll second that.
all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And do we have to do,
Close the public hearing.
or do we need these other
Motion number
motions
2.
as well?
Sewer debt exclusion?
No. Oh, yeah,
We do, but
Not
that's
with
not part of the
That's for the
public.
next one. Yeah.
okay. I move the select board vote to close the public hearing and joint meeting with the Board of Assessors at 7:11.
At 7:11, do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, one minute.
I apologize, you don't have to vote no, that you're not going to adopt the,
Jeff was saying in the beginning that since we already, the policy currently is no, that we wouldn't have to revote that,
Okay.
but do we want to,
I
should we do it just to
we
be
have to
safe?
restate it, yeah.
I want to restate, okay.
Let's restate it.
Every year.
That was a
why-
close one.
well, that's why I raised the
wasn't
point.
sure.
that
Yeah,
we
sorry.
have to do that, and nobody objected.
Yeah, I think the DOR every year looks for you to certify that you actually voted no on these.
Okay, can we do them together or separate?
I think you do it together.
Do them together? All right.
All right, so should I, we already voted on that, so we'll just vote on the second two. All right, so I move that the town not adopt a residential exemption and not adopt a small commercial exemption.
And I'll second that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And now we can close, right?
Yep.
So I'm going to make that motion for 7:12.
Yeah, I move the select board vote to close the public hearing and joint meeting with the Board of Assessors at 7:12 PM.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you, guys.
much.
That was.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Please do.
Sean is diligent, dedicated, irreplaceable in my point. The work he does to put these numbers together is really quite extraordinary.
Thank you, John.
Noted, thank you for saying that. Thank you very much.
Bye, thank
Awesome,
you.
have a great night. All right, 5.3, approving a sewer debt exclusion, Mr. Noble.
So every year, the board is required to adopt the sewer debt exclusion. This goes back to 2011. This is done every year because this is our portion of the sewer project and the treatment plant with North Attleboro.
Okay.
Interestingly, this reflects a decision at town meeting to split, to agree to split the costs, 30%, 70%, I think, or 35%, 65%, something like that, between sewer ratepayers and the overall community as a community benefit.
Precedent.
Yep.
Very good.
Good. I move that the select board vote to approve a sewer debt exclusion for FY '25 as follows. West Side Sewer Project Principal, $134,410. West Side Sewer Project Interest, $24,194. North Attleboro Treatment Plant, 35% of the debt service, $108,146.
I'll second that motion.
For a total of, do we have to do total? Don't need a total, okay, very good. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, by the way, for the background on the sewer financial analysis that was included in our packet.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the memo that came from the DOR many years ago, and I had put it for reference in case anybody asked a question. Unfortunately, I forgot to tell Sandy not to distribute it because it was something you've seen before.
No, it was useful to revisit that and the logic that went into that decision.
All right, with that, do we have everyone we need to go back to the South Street tips update? We do?
Yes, we're ready to
All
go.
right, come on up. all the meetings not to have the projector working.
I know.
This has to be the worst.
We have handouts.
Oh, very good. Handouts in the room.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's anybody at North TV that can take these presentations
Wow.
and like superimpose them in on the replay of this,
In the background.
but that would be very helpful. We'll have to throw an email into Peter Gay.
We should get one of those like ladybug things they use in school for times like this.
Oh, one of those wheel-out boards?
You know, like the thing like it's like they put it on the desk and
Oh,
it
yeah.
projects it. Yeah. We should have one of these.
From the 50s,
Backup.
yeah. Exactly.
Well, we have one, sort of.
Well, backup.
Yeah, as a backup. So, thank you both for being here. We're going to get an update on the TIPS project. If everybody's been following along with this project, we had a 25% plan voted on by the select board a couple of times now so far. And we've had a public hearing on the kind of the last big layout of this project. We got a lot of public feedback, some positive and some negative around the project. And really the biggest issue that we were facing was basically the width of the total project and the encroachment on what people see as their front lawns on South Street right now. So our mission was to go back and make this project as narrow as we could, while still, keeping in mind the traffic benefits that we're trying to achieve. I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but we got some feedback from the state that what we thought was a really great plan that we submitted to them wasn't going to fly, so we had to come up with a plan B, which is what I think we'll go through tonight. So please take it away.
So, sure, I'm Chris Roy from Baker Booth, and just gonna update you on I'll probably repeat a lot of the things that Brian said, and update you on our progress since I was last here in January. So we've gone through a few of some MassDOT, checking some MassDOT boxes. They required that we obtain some new traffic volumes. We went through the ICE process, which is the intersection control evaluation. And we also obtained QA/QC certification of the survey. These are all just part of the MassDOT process to get us to continue forward. And then we laid out the design with a 5-foot buffer. So we had an 8-foot shared use path on each side of the road with a 5-foot buffer on each side of the road. And as Brian had mentioned too, there was still too many impacts. So we took some direction and factored in a lot of feedback from the residents and went back to see what can we do to reduce this buffer and reduce the impacts. We looked at reducing the buffer to a 3-foot buffer. There were certain objects that typically would go in the buffer, and one obstacle that we couldn't overcome was when we coordinated MassDOT.
Success.
How did that happen?
The post office's ultimate goal was to get mailboxes to the curbside, so we could not avoid that. We could not reduce the buffer.
Very much. I would have done that. I've never had that problem before.
Stuck with a 5-foot buffer on each side of the road. So we went back to the drawing board and said, what else can we do? Can we make this section better? And what we came up with was the section that you see in front of you, a shared use path on one side of the road.
We just pause there for a quick second.
Yep.
Some of you may remember us asking the question early on in this, can we just do this on one side? We don't know exactly where the no came from, but we are operating on the assumption for the better part of a year now, or more, that we needed this shared use on both sides. But it turns out through, I don't know if something happened or changed with the state or what, but in the latest rendition of this, we only need it on one side, which now allows us to really get this down to the width that we are trying to achieve. So, please.
So as you can see in this section, we have the shared use path. This section is looking north in general, and we have the shared use path on the west side of the road, the 10-foot shared use path with a 5-foot buffer, and on the east side of the road, just a 6-foot sidewalk. So Bidirectional bicycles would use the shared use path along with pedestrians on the west side of the road, and pedestrians would use the sidewalk on the east side of the road.
So just to be clear, you're standing in front of Town Hall, you're looking towards Rentham, you've got the shared use path on the Town Hall side of the road, looking towards Rentham, just for folks at home.
And the reason we chose the west side of the road were several reasons. One was the future Metacomet Greenway, which is going to be proposed on the west of 1A. It'll provide better or easier connectivity to that. Telford Park is on the west side of the road. Also, it would be less disruptive on the west side of the road because of buildings on the east side of the road that are very close and basically at the back of sidewalk, especially at the center of town. And also, one other thing that we've been doing as we go along is coordinating with the Plainville Square project, and we will continue to coordinate with them as they develop the west side of the road as well. We will be able to work with them as we design this. As far as budget and schedule, we are on time, on budget. The schedule would be to move forward and submit a revised 25% beginning of the year, this year, and follow that up with 75% next fall, 100% PS&E. This is all part of the MassDOT process, and construction is still set to occur at the beginning of 2027.
So those dates aren't what's in our packet.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
So run us through that one more time. We're doing the 25% tonight. You said 75% is summer of 2025 or fall of 2025?
So the 25% revised design is the beginning of 2025. The 75% design is the fall of 2025.
Okay.
The 100% is winter or the beginning of 2026. And the PS&E, which is final plan, specs, and estimate, would be spring of 2026. And then the contract would be advertised at the end of 2026.
Okay. And shovels in the ground.
Shovels in the ground, spring of 2027.
Okay. And from what I understand, this is set to be a 2-year project once it starts? Okay. So I guess we'll pause there and we'll get thoughts from the board on the new 25% proposed layout.
It's nice after a couple of years to get back to what we wanted in terms of that layout. That's, and sometimes you have to beat your head against the door a few times to get the answer you need. But that certainly, I think, is going to fly much better with our residents. I wish our schedule hadn't shifted, but but the extra work ends up costing time, and that's how we're going to pay for it in that time.
So just for those of you at home who don't have a handout, if you're standing in front of Town Hall and you're looking out towards Rentham, the proposed layout would be approximately 60 feet in width. However, essentially, from the edge of what people foresee as or see as their property right now, you'd have a 10-foot shared use path followed by a 5-foot brick buffer, and it's probably going to be, I would guess, Stampcrete colored brick or something like that. You then would have a granite curb, which would have a 6-inch reveal, which would go down onto the actual roadway surface. You'd have a 4-foot breakdown lane, and then you'd have two 11-foot travel lanes. Those travel lanes are slightly narrower than the existing travel lane. Is that correct, or is it about the same?
It's
Slightly narrower by about a foot or so. Is that right? Okay. So the idea is to slow traffic down as it comes through, so that you're actually going the speed limit. Go figure. So you'd have 11-foot travel lane in both sides, followed by another 4-foot breakdown lane. Then you'd have a 6-inch granite curb, followed by a 6-foot sidewalk. And then you'd have basically the edge of lawns or parking lots there. All telephone poles will be either moved or remain on the outside of the shared use path, right? And I think it's all on the west side, is that right?
Yeah, most of them are on the west side. There are some on the east side, but they're far enough, they're typically far enough back, even behind the sidewalk,
Okay,
at the edge of the right of way.
okay. And the idea now is that, so assuming that the board is accepting of this design, we'll now go through the work between now and I guess the end of the year and fully flesh out the details of this 25% plan. And I think we're going to see we know we're going to see a massive reduction in the amount of properties impacted or the severity of the impact on certain properties. So thank you for all of your efforts on our behalf. I know going back and forth and waiting for calls back and following up with the state has not been easy, and I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Any other-
state hasn't made it easy. We haven't made it easy sometimes either, but we're getting to a much better place.
Yeah.
Just a couple comments. I would
Please.
just say, it'd be very interesting to see how those impacts on the residents have been reduced, because I think that was the point, so that'll be good to see.
Yep.
And I will say, I think that this makes a lot of sense. One thing that we did lose in this, however, is any, like, trees or grass or anything pretty. So I think we'll just have to be really thoughtful about putting in really pretty lights and making sure that the end product is attractive.
Right. Yeah, totally agree with you, and that was something that I was excited about when we had the kind of that buffer, and we were thinking, oh, there'd be grass, but then we got into the maintenance of it and all that. So the last iteration of this was, stampcrete in a colored fashion, but then the idea was that in that section, we could have essentially, we could install large flower boxes, and that would be basically as you come into town,
Yeah.
right? And we just have to figure out
We gotta-
who's in charge of putting flowers in those boxes.
Yeah, we just gotta put a little thought into
Yeah.
making sure we haven't lost the attractiveness of it.
Yeah, completely agree with that. I'm totally of the same mind there. It's just, I think, and who was it? Kevin Baldwin, right? We were asking about, what to put in that buffer zone. What could we grow there that we could cut or that would grow and
Well, and that wouldn't look ridiculous
that
when it
wouldn't
wasn't.
burn out or
right,
turn into weeds and, yeah,
Right, it
so.
wasn't simple.
Right, and so we have seen some pictures where they do have these pretty nice big planters.
Okay.
And so, yeah, as we move forward, that's something that certainly we'll want to talk more about. Any questions from anyone else on the board before I move to the audience? Is that all right? Please come on up. And while he's making his way, do you remember the last time you were here, what the end-to-end of the project or the width of the project was essentially from the, not necessarily, like right now we're showing 60 feet edge to edge, but that really takes into account what we're considering like 6 feet setback, which is really going to still be people's front lawns, right? So this is really, what is it, 48?
That's impactful.
So you're talking from, like, say, the back of the sidewalk to the back of the back of the shared use path to the back of the shared use path, that?
Yes, yeah,
Previously, it was 54 feet total. That did not include like utility poles or anything
Yep.
like that.
so 54, now we're down to 48.
We're down to 51. We
Yeah,
went
51.
down to 49, but then the state came back and they wanted the shoulders slightly larger, from 3 foot to a 4 foot
It's
shoulder.
5 foot, yeah. Or, yeah, 4 foot, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go edge of grass to edge of grass, it's 51.
51, gotcha, okay. Very good. Mr. Dupre.
Chris DeBrey, 39 High Street. Can I ask how much of this project, based on what we're talking about, is directed by the state? As far as, look, I mean, we have a specific downtown district, and I'm not sure it will fit in with the state's idea of idealism, you know what I'm saying? And basically, we've spent a lot of money on different renditions of what we're looking at, a lot, because I've been a part of it. And so I'm trying to kind of come up with a way to where we don't keep wasting money based on what we're doing. And look, I don't think we can give up parking spaces along the route because people take advantage of that big time towards the post office in different ways. And Don's Diner and stuff like that. And, it's very important for them. And but looking at this, I know there's so much money that goes behind this. I'm not trying to be difficult, but we need to come up with a solution and do it fast because we're spending way too much money on this. We just are.
So just this is a general typical section kind of outside of the town center. We have additional specific sections that will include on-street parking.
Okay, but, we need something, if we're going to spend that kind of money, we need something that is for us. And we've done it for years at this point. And if we can't get it to us, I don't know what we're doing. So anyways, take care.
Yeah, thank you. I think what Mr. Dupre said is, at least from my perspective, exactly what we're doing. From the last meeting to this meeting, right? We showed it. We did not feel that it was for Plainville. We heard from the residents. They said it was too wide. They liked the idea, but they didn't like the impact on the properties. And now we're making it as minimal as possible to still achieve that goal. And all of the feedback we got from that meeting, including on-street parking, which was a big one, is still being taken into account. So I look forward to seeing in the, early new year, the fleshed out 25% plan where we will have our projector working. We'll have a public hearing and we'll run down this project end to end in another public hearing to show folks exactly what they can expect. Awesome. And then again, just to reiterate, on time, on budget. Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Bergevin?
Joe Bergevine, South Street. Just a quick question, directed to you. What's the 2 feet and 2 feet represent? Then you get another 6. So that's on this side of the street, right? So going towards Rentham.
Yeah.
So what does the 2 and 2 represent? Why can't that just be 6?
So the 2 foot is, the first 2 foot is the required offset between a shared use path and the utility pole. The 2 foot, the next 2 foot is the actual width for the utility pole. Now, typically utility poles aren't 2 feet wide. However, the state factors in a 2 foot width in case they have risers or if the pole is larger. So it's just a standard 2 foot that they use. The 6 foot grass beyond that, that's going to vary as we go up and down the section. And that's just to kind of show just a little bit of space there between the utility poles and basically the edge of the property.
Because there is a lot of commercial buildings right next door to the garage, D&D. She just texted me and asked me, why is this when it's, they're taking the whole front spot of that building. There's going to be no parking there at all. That's what I'm saying. That's just one building. I'm for the project. I'm just asking. It's going to be.
Yeah, as we lay it out, we'll definitely take that into account,
Okay.
and you'll see that in a few months.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Any other questions? Any other comments? All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that was 4.2. We're going to move back into new business, 6.1. Mr. Noble.
So we're going to postpone this particular thing because our police chief is out of town on business.
Okay.
So we'll do this at the next meeting.
All right, so 4.3 and 6.1, we're going to move until,
Next, which is the Tuesday, the 12th, unless we reschedule it.
okay.
Which I would appreciate.
We will work on that then. We can work on that. So 6.2, this was just right after town meeting, somebody had approached me and said, what's going on in Plainville? Why are we we only have one option, we only have Comcast as an option. I remember this coming up early days in my door knocking, when asking people what they would want to see change in Plainville, they all said, why can't we get Verizon Fios? And that was a big thing that was asked of me. I didn't know what had changed, if anything, since then. I just know I had always heard that expansion of the fiber optic network was possibly an issue. I'm not sure, but Mr. Noble?
Thank you. So the question that you propose is, why are we granting a monopoly to Comcast? And we aren't, but let me tell you how this works. The town licenses cable television operators under Massachusetts law that goes back to 1971, long before the internet services were ever envisioned. This law also allows for the 1% fee on the cable bill, which supports our North TV efforts to broadcast our meetings, etc. And that is considered a benefit to Comcast customers. But Comcast is the only cable television operator that has ever applied for a license in the town. Chapter 166, this is the chapter that regulates cable television, does not regulate internet services. So Verizon is free to install its Fios product anywhere in the town, while Fios is right now not available everywhere in Plainville. This is not due to any restrictions imposed by the town. Rather, it's Verizon's business decision. Verizon does not currently offer traditional cable television services, so residents, if they adopted for the Fios, would have to subscribe to streaming services to get any kind of entertainment, if you will. So it's not because the town is preventing Verizon. It's because Verizon isn't interested in providing television services under 166, which is the only thing that's regulated. Internet services are not regulated because it is the policy of the state to promote internet connectivity without impediment. So that's why that law is the way it is. Comcast currently offers telephone service, internet streaming, and television services, where Verizon is only offering internet services. When Thermo Fisher moved into town, they paid Verizon to string a fiber optic cable to their facility, and as a result, in some neighborhoods in the town, you can piggyback on their investment in the cable that they paid Verizon to put in. So some areas in town, like for example, where we are located right now, can subscribe to Fios. But unfortunately, that isn't across the board, and it isn't in every neighborhood.
Are people aware of that?
I think so, because I get frustrated phone calls all the time. But if you go to the Verizon website and you put in your address, it'll tell you whether you can have Verizon Fios or not.
Gotcha. Any other questions, or anybody in the audience? Please come on up.
Of Moore's Grove Street. Do you know if Verizon has applied for, I think it's a hawker peddler license?
They have not.
Because there's been sales reps up and down my street.
All the cops.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to confirm that, thank you.
Thank you.
My favorite subject, Comcast.
Is it?
No, but when is the last time Comcast ever invested into the system here? Because I personally know they have, and I'm just, are they gonna ever, upgrade the systems that are out there in Plainville?
They don't share their thoughts with me, but the direct answer to the question, if you have customer service complaints, we do have a government liaison. If you give me what your concerns are, I will pass them on.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't get rid of Comcast if we'd lose Channel 8. I'd be really lost, so I don't want to lose Channel 8.
Thank you. All right. I'll consider that box checked. Next, approval of hawker peddler license application from
Junior Bonneau.
Junior Bonneau. No? Say it nice and loud.
Bell, no.
Thank you. For Sunrun Solar.
Oh,
Thank you.
interesting. Thank you.
There are typos in our motion and whatnot.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So he's returning to us.
He's a frequent flyer,
Okay.
and he's doing it right. He has a state permit. He's done a Corey check.
Yep.
He's legally able to solicit in neighborhoods if we give them this permit.
Yeah, Bill, no. He's got it right on the application.
My one question is, we haven't, as far as I know, we've had no real complaints with his
Not
work.
about Junior.
Well, him.
Not him.
Other ones, yes.
However you pronounce his last name.
Oh, no.
Can I
There's
ask
an
a
L in
question?
there.
But just in general, does this license cover other people from Sunrun?
No, only him.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
It's not a transferable license. Any hawker vendor that comes in with multiple salespeople has to have multiple licenses. Every single person who solicits needs
Okay.
a state license and a town permit.
I'll get them next time.
Absolutely.
You've been warned.
Smile
Maggie's
for the
looking for
camera.
All right,
I make a motion that the select board approve the hawker and peddler license from Junior Belno Sunrun Solar effective October 21st, 2024, expiring November 21st, 2024.
I'll second that motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next is the approval of a Class 2 license application for Next Gen Endeavors, Inc., DBA Crossroads Auto at 71 Washington Street.
Thank you. This is a new owner of an existing facility or business. So it's basically a transfer of the license from the old company to the new company. The employee of the company, Peter Huckins, is taking over the corporation from the widow of the previous owner. And the license is in proper form. The certificate of insurance has been filed. The corporation record is complete. And I would like to thank Attorney Luke Travis for his help on getting this across the board.
Is this, and this is previously known as Route 1 Automotive?
Yes,
Now it's going to be renamed Crossroads
correct.
Crossroads Auto?
Yes.
And Route 1 Auto, right? Both.
It's actually got several.
Oh, and Route 1 Auto, okay, all right, I just noticed on the agenda, I wasn't looking at the motion.
This is the one next door to Joel Linehan's
Yep.
sign
Correct, yeah, graphic images.
image.
So this is not considered a new license?
No, it's a transfer. Actually, in all sincerity, it is a new license. There's no such thing as a transfer, but
Okay.
since we're used to saying that in liquor licenses,
Yep.
it's a transfer.
So the old one never lapsed?
No.
And there's no change in terms of the number of vehicles or?
No change in the number of vehicles, no change in the parking lot layout, no change in operation. And he has passed a building inspection, so
And no concerns from
no
anyone?
concerns.
Okay. All right, I make a motion that we vote to approve the Class 2 license application from Next Gen Endeavors, Inc.,
We haven't gone through the motion
If you can
first.
finish.
DBA Crossroads Auto, 71 Washington Street.
And I'll second the motion, so we have a motion on the floor.
Very good, we've got a motion and a second, please come on up. Yep, absolutely.
I knew Paul, who's the owner, and I want to make sure this goes right. So however this goes, I want to make sure it goes right because he's a good guy.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Yep, he was a great guy, he's very missed, and I know Pete will do a good job moving forward. We have a motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Six five, appoint additional listed election officials that will be sworn in for the following election, November 5th, 2024, state election.
Yeah, there's a request from the town clerk to add additional staffing appointment to the state election on the 5th of November. It's actually the federal election too, but, so she's adding additional assistants.
All right, greeters and floaters, all right?
I move that the select board vote to appoint the additional listed election officials that will be sworn in for the following scheduled election, November 5th, 2024, state election, greeters, floaters, Andrew Martin, Michael Burns, Sarah Lincoln.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good, and thank you to all our election workers for, what I'm sure will be a very long day coming up. And we had one item of unanticipated business, right, which I don't think I announced in the beginning. Mr. Noble?
So we received an email this morning from Representative Vaughn's office informing that our home rule petition, which goes back to the annual meeting of June of 2023, to allow us to appoint retired police officers to perform police duties on details. And they wanted to add a line, an amendment to the home petition to comply with POST, the Police Officers Qualifications and Certification Board, that would maintain the certification of POST. By the way, that stands for Peace Officers Standards and Training Commission. So they've proposed an amendment. They need the board's approval of the amendment. This has not been passed. It's sitting in the hopper waiting for your approval.
Okay.
Went through its third reading.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, went through its third reading.
Yes.
I have a couple questions.
Please go ahead.
I'm kind of surprised that it took 3 readings for that to get noted by somebody, but I think I don't have a problem with changing it. I want to make sure we're doing it right. We're actually, I think we're being supportive of the amendment that's been proposed. I think it's a little redundant because I believe we currently mandate our municipal police officers to all be maintaining certification with POST as is. And the section being modified already says that they have to comply with all of ours, but whatever, if they want to be.
If this is what it takes to get it through
Yeah,
and make
get
them
it done.
happy.
Get it done.
The most important thing that we had in the motion, we even gave them permission to amend for procedural changes as may be necessary. So I think we're covered 6 ways from Sunday, but
Yep. No, it's fine. It just,
yeah.
Ms. Clerk, do you have a question?
Is this time sensitive?
Yes. Although if we don't pass it tonight, it doesn't go through the session. So we'd be talking about this next year.
next year or the year after.
Yeah.
But
Any
by the time they did
thoughts or
clean it.
questions, though?
No, not
Okay.
really, no.
Okay.
No, that was a question I'd had. I forgot to ask you. What time sensitive?
All right.
So I move that the select board, are you comfortable with the language, or did you want to make a change? Well, you can make the motion if you want.
Yeah.
If you want to tweak it.
I move the select board support the proposed amendment of State Representative Marcus Vaughn to Section 4 of House Number 4464 by adding the following sentence. A special police officer appointed under this act shall comply with all requirements of Chapter 6E of the general laws, including 1, maintaining certification and good standing with Massachusetts Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission, and 2, complying with all annual in-service and other training requirements mandated by the Municipal Police Training Committee.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. I didn't notice anything particularly changed. We're reading the motion as is,
It was a little bit, it was a little different.
just in the very beginning, but it didn't seem to,
No, there's no substantive change.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just wanted to make sure I
just
didn't
make
miss
sure
something.
We're not saying, we're not the people who approve this amendment. The
Right.
legislature approves the amendment.
Understood.
We're supporting the.
Gotcha, very
Actually,
good.
no, you have to approve the amendment.
Oh, right, yeah, we're
Yeah,
approving the
approve-
amendment, so they can approve
Right.
the,
We're approving the text.
Yeah.
That's what we need to approve.
Second?
And, well, one other question. We don't have to go back and change anything in our home rule petition because it's superseded by HR 4464.
Yes.
Okay.
all right. We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that wraps up this evening's agenda. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved,
Uh,
7:49 PM.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Plainville. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The
Good to
other
see you.
change.